Hospitality is a very rewarding career. It's also very challenging. How do you deal with certain situation? When you have overbooking, what do you do? The role of a front office agent is very critical, but I think he also have to approach you with care.
In terms of loyalty, these days, anyone spending 2 years, 3 years in an organization is already seen a lot. People these days choose this path of, switching organization to get faster growth.
The hunger to learn and grow was always there. I had tray with some fresh juices and stuff on my head, and it fell down. I really thought that was the last day that I probably won't be clearing my probation. You always need to have mentor and coaches that you can always reach out to. He said, Lokesh, here's your ticket, go back home. You're not fit to work with us. There's a book by Dale Carnegie. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Till date is one of the most effective books for anybody who would like to work in service industry. When I came to Dubai in 2006, I was really astonished with the beautiful skyscrapers and the way city was developing and growing. At the end of the day, we also run business. We have to make money, and this is one of our KPIs.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Hospitality Diaries by Elitebutlers, and I'm your host Shiv. Today's guest is a true example of commitment, continuous growth, and loyalty. Someone who's carved his way in the most competitive hospitality market in the world. In today's session, we will understand from him what it truly takes to elevate your career in hospitality, what is the skill, the mindset, and the moment that defines it all. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Lokesh Suwalka. So, Mr. Swalka, tell me, you went from an associate to a guest service manager, then to an assistant front office manager, then front office manager, and then you became a room division manager. And I'm sure this is not luck. That is a deliberate climb. What was the mindset through each of these steps?
I think from the very beginning, as I said earlier, the hunger to learn and grow was always there. And how do you learn and grow? By first, you can do it yourself by self help, reading some of the books on human relations and management. And as I said, Jumeirah ran a very thorough and detailed learning and development department, and all the training. So we are blessed to have those resources available for us to continue develop and grow. Some of the really good books and some of the trainings I've attended are from Sir Stephen Covey. I think the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I think that really played a very important role in growing from a waiter, butler to team leader to the management roles. I think that's something that I can really recommend. And nowadays also Simon Sinek, he's one of the great authors of quite a few books that he has written for somebody to self-help and develop. I was also very lucky in my leaders at the moment, at the time, were quite helpful in, grooming me. And I was always somebody who would always approach and ask questions. I will stop them in the smoking area. I will stop them in the cafeteria, and always very inquisitive and asking, how do you deal with certain situation? When you have overbooking, what do you do? When you plan for maintenance, what do you do? What do you do on your P&L statement? How do you forecast? How do you budget? So from a very early age in my career, that was my focus. So that I would always approach one of my immediate supervisor who was willing to share his knowledge with me. So when I was a lobby butler, I had a gentleman called Sandeep Pednikar. I would always approach to him whenever he was free, because he used to also work very closely with management in terms of opening paymasters and credit limit follow-ups and all these daily tasks that we were doing. So I would always engage myself. How do you lead a group check-in? All these little details. So over a period of time, I was very lucky enough to have one of my first mentor was Sophie Warnier. I think she was somebody who really trusted me from my team leader to an assistant manager role. And I'm sure I did not, I lived up to the expectations of Sophie and leadership. So I learned a lot from Sophie. Then I had Manas Lal. He until date I'm on contact with him. If there's anything that I would like to ask, you always need to have mentor and coaches that you can always reach out to and seek their blessings and their guidance. And Rahul Sharma, I remember particularly when I was in my early days of management. One day he told me, "Okay, Lokesh, I hear that you asked a lot of questions. Let me see, how good you are. Walk with me to the villa." So Rahul, in the evening during the happy hours, he took me and walked all 29 villas, and interacted with the guest, and he showed me, leading by example, how does he build rapport with the guest, a long term, converting a first time into a repeat guest, and so on. And I was really astonished to see, how excellent, how great he was with the guest, and equally with colleagues. So there was a lot of learning from him. And then, I started to follow what he was doing. He was front office manager at the moment, and I was only a team leader at the time. And he said, Lokesh, I empower you to take decisions. I want to make sure that you, and in your leadership role, that you do the same with the butlers of the villa, and try and train them, and look from the perspective of a guest. What this guest is looking for. What are the things that we could anticipate as a butler and as a supervisor we can provide them without guests has to ask for it. And that's a key difference when you're building good rapport, and delivering excellent level of service and consistently scoring about 90. I think these are the trainings from the leaders like those. We were able to redefine our career, learn, grow, and are also able to impart the same knowledge moving forward. Some of the great leaders, like Rahul, Manas. I also had Kanchan Matani. She was a mentor for me for upselling, for example. And guest experience. There were quite a few managers who were helping me how to deal with a challenging situation. How do you handle guest feedback? What are the things that you can do to turn around a guest experience? If guest has experienced a glitch or a challenge during this day, and it's actually a great opportunity for us to turn around their experience with us and convert them also into a regular guest. And we were quite successful in doing that, and the team was really, really, really great. Early in my career, from a technical point of view, when I was a lobby butler, Rakesh Nayak, he was our supervisor, along with Savio Fernandez. And they were the one who taught me the nitty gritty of rooms inventory. How do you manage? How do you plan villa closure or for energy efficiency during the summer months when the occupancy was low? So I think I've got to learn a lot from all these leaders and mentors along the way on different roles. In my senior roles, I was blessed to work with Kristen White. She had excellent communication skills, and I really loved the way she would communicate in our briefings, on the emails with the management higher up, and with the colleagues. So I think a lot of credit goes to her as well, along with Sandrine Goslin. She was our RDM and Director of Rooms in Alcasa and Massive together. And also Sandrine was a very different approach in terms of managing operations, but her attention to detail was second to none. And she was known for that. And if you're going to inspect a VIP room or a villa, you will definitely learn a lot. And I'm sure whoever goes it, if Sandrine used to go, she would always find one or two things for us to redo, or refine for a guest experience point of view. She had great connections with the children particularly, and that's what you could learn from those leaders. With another great leader in our corporate office, Marta Maluker. She was exceptional in so many different ways of imparting her knowledge. So I was blessed to have all these mentors along the way. You always have to ask them for their help to learn in my early stages. That really made me successful in my role as front office manager. And recently, when I moved to Jumeirah Creekside, I was blessed again to have some really great mentors. We had Mr. Nandana Veerasinghe. He is general manager now in Sri Lanka, and Mr. Andy Cutworth. I think those two leaders, you will learn a lot. Together, they would come up with about more than 60 years of experience between them. Mr. Andy Cutworth, personally, I love the gentleman. He's somebody who's I call him as a walking encyclopedia. His management style is very different. He never likes to sit in the office. He would go around every single inch of the hotel at least 2 to 3 times in a day. And while he's walking and you walk with him, and you will understand the way he look at things, his perspective of how do you manage. He would remember every single colleague's name in the hotel. And even if colleagues who are not directly on the payroll of Jumeirah, but colleagues who are helping us from outside, so that is something that is really exceptional about him, and a lot to learn from him. And he's very down to earth, very pragmatic, and very operational, agile. If you'll see walking in the corridor that some guests have thrown a tissue on the floor or something, he would not wait for housekeeping, or he will call a manager. He will pick it up himself, and we'll see, how he leads by example. So when you work closely with the leaders like those, really, you completely have different exposure of hospitality. He's very well known in Dubai, and for his leadership and for his contribution to the hospitality.
I can resonate to what you said, and I also had an opportunity to also work closely with some of the leaders that you mentioned. And looking at you as well, you have very successful journey. So for someone who's looking to you as a leader, what is the kind of advice that you like to give? Let's say if someone who's starting his career as a waiter, what is the kind of advice that you like to give to them?
I think it's very simple. I think keep things simple. Work hard. Have work on your communication skills, learning the product knowledge of what you have. A little bit of an emotional intelligence is very important. When you're serving at a table, and you need to know when to interrupt, when not to interrupt a guest. When to serve. Those basic details of the service standards has to be spot on. Nowadays, if you go to dine in many of the restaurants, and if you see a dish and you ask a waiter, tell me what are the ingredients in the dish that you've just served me. More often than not, unfortunately, you are not able to get the full details, if there are any allergens or anything that you don't like. So those informations are very critical for you to be successful in your role. So technical knowledge, how well do you get along with your colleagues, with your leadership? Keep learning is something that is really, really important. And I can recommend a book for somebody who is starting new to hospitality. There's a book by Dale Carnegie. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think the book was first written in 1937, almost about 80, 90 years ago. But I think till date is one of the most effective books for anybody who would like to work in service industry. I would say keep learning, keep things simple for themselves, ask questions. I think the success would come only when you show that hunger, and you would approach and show that you are capable of, not waiting for a supervisor to come and approach you to guide you. But it's up to us as an individual to reach out to people, asking for their guidance and suggestions, and sharing their experience. And that's how you learn and build the foundation for you to be successful in your hospitality career.
You have spent a decent time of your career into front office, and as we know, front office, for any front office professional to be successful in his career, upselling plays a vital role. And you've also touched about it previously. Let's say as a hotel, what are the possibilities for an upsell? And second, what should be the approach when someone is trying to upsell any facility to the client?
I think it's a very good question. At the end of the day, we also run business. We have to make money, and this is one of our KPIs, right? Or which is where we are judged on how well we do financially. I think the role of a front office agent is very critical, but I think he also have to approach with care. The GAC or the receptionist would have to read the guest first before approaching for an upselling. Reading in terms of what are their requirements and what is he expecting from the stay. And that can happen when you're interacting with the guest, building that rapport. And once you find out the purpose of the visit, or what are they looking forward to do in the hotel or in the resort, and you are able to, connect with them in terms of what you have available that you could offer them. So upselling is not just making more money, but it's delivering a better experience to the guest, where he is happy and we are happy, because it has to be a win-win. It shouldn't be seen as something that is a task that is being forced upon GACs to make more money. And our guests are able to identify that very quickly. To give an example, if somebody is single traveler, you would not like to offer them a bigger suite, because that would not make sense. You rather offer him an access to an exclusive lounge where you could serve sip a coffee and continue to work, and things like these. This is what we train our colleagues, in our briefings, and then there are follow-ups. So there are a lot of things that you could upsell. It could be a better category of rooms, early check-in, late checkouts, your meal programs, half board, full board. If you have something in collaboration with the spa, or, all of that. So there are a lot of, availability that you could try and offer to a guest. But again, it has to be a genuine, it has to be something to understand the guest first, their needs, requirement, and then try and connect with what we have available. And that can only happen again when your your homework is proper, when you know what offers you have, what is available, and that you can make a relevant offering to the guest. And again, very important is that when a guest refuses, that you do not show disappointment on your face, because
Exactly,
that
exactly.
could
True,
really
true.
backfire, and it would not, it'll be very awkward for a guest to see. So regardless whether the guest chooses or not chooses, your way of dealing with the guest should remain the same, very friendly, and in a very comfortable way. Yeah.
Also, in terms of loyalty, these days, anyone spending 2 years, 3 years in an organization is already seen a lot. What kept you going? I think you are an inspiration and also an ideal person who has shown loyalty and a continuous growth. So tell us what kept you going and why did you not try to switch to a different role? Because a lot of people these days choose this path of switching organization to get faster growth. What is your perspective on this?
I think I would like to see that where the people choose to leave the company when they're not happy, or when they see a different growth or opportunities. What kept me going was honestly, apart from learning and growing within the company, are the people. And as I said, it was very difficult to find all these people that I just mentioned earlier, who could continue to train me and are able to share their knowledge and experience, which really helped me to be who I am today. Without their help would not be possible. And also the colleagues that I work with, I've met lifelong friends, right? I found my life partner working in Jumeirah. So, it's the people, and it's the environment, it's the company that you give back. And I never actually found any challenge that I need to look for something else. You had offers once in a while from a different company, but then if you're happy, you have great leaders who are looking after you, and training you and coaching you. So this was my journey so far for almost 19 years with Jumeirah.
No, it's a very inspirational journey for sure. And I remember my time, when I started working with you, and I could of course look up to you as a leader. And I think we've also,
Thank you.
a lot of us have also learned from you, and we are also blessed at where the situation that we are in. It's all because of the learning and the leaders around you that have also groomed us in the same way. Now, this is more of a serious discussion. Let's go a little bit into, because hospitality is all about fun. I'm sure there may be some instances that you would have encountered in your career. So tell us some interesting, some experience that you had in your early careers and also with your added responsibility. Let's say when you became a room revision manager, would you remember any instance that happened which was something which was not expected to be, and then how you shouldered the responsibilities and came out of it as a winner?
So one of the things, very early in my career, I think I was still in my probation period in Pool Bar, and so there was a very important dignitary from the country, along with his entire protocol and entourage, came unannounced to the hotel. And I was called again as a member of task force. I was called quickly to come and serve the guest and the entourage. So we were ready quickly in no time. I had tray with some fresh juices and stuff on my hand. So we were queuing. So there were a couple of more colleagues ahead of me, and then a couple of colleagues more behind of me. So the colleague right in front of me decided to turn around, and when she turned around, I had tray in my hand, and it fell down, and the glass broke and the juice spilled. And I really thought that that was the last day, that I probably won't be clearing my probation with Jumeirah, would be sent back because of quite high profile guests who are here. The most important person of the country is here. But I was just asked to go from there at the moment, because I was very nervous then. And then I spoke to my outlet manager, my direct manager, and said, he said, Lokesh, don't worry, just go home. We come and discuss tomorrow. So trust me, I couldn't sleep the whole night because I thought, okay,
I'm
tomorrow
sure.
maybe they will take me to HR, and they said, okay, please, here is your ticket, go back home. You're not fit to work with us. So, but I was very grateful to Rushdie Sheikh. He actually explained me that these challenges do happen, and talk me through. And towards the end of the conversation, I was feeling a bit relieved and sort of calm and smiling with him. The way he managed that situation with me, and that was also a learning for me. When I was a waiter, I've gone through such a situation, so I always remember this, and I always make sure that I keep that in mind when my line level colleagues or my colleagues are making a mistake, just to go back, and it always reminds me. Even 20 years down the line, it's very fresh in my memories. So that was one of the situations. And from a leadership perspective, I think we were dealing with the World Economic Forum. We were hosting in one of our hotels, and the hotel was sort of very busy. And of course, about 2 o'clock in the morning, the hotel is sold out. We have no other rooms. And one of the protocol director from the protocol office reached out and said, Lokesh, we need one additional room for a VIP. He's at the airport and should be in the hotel in 40 to 45 minutes. I said, listen, we sold out. It's not like we have pending arrivals. The 290 rooms are occupied. We have no other rooms available. He said, sorry, I cannot do anything. You have to create a magic and find something for me, because I can't. He's such a dignitary, and he's on an invitation by the government of Dubai, so we cannot say no to him. I said, okay, let me see what I can do. So I've gone through the in-house list, and I remember the last few check-ins that we had. One of them was for one of the security officers who was here. So I told him, listen, I need your help. We can approach him, and we can find him a different hotel nearby. But he said he will come and help. So we reached out to the security professional and said, listen, sorry, we'll have to give your room to another VIP who's on the way, and we don't really have much time to prepare. We got him out of the room. We offered him a room in a different hotel, but he said he cannot go because of his responsibilities in the hotel. So we had to make a makeshift bed in our Al Raha waiting lounge at the moment in Al, and we moved him for a few hours until we had an early departure the next morning, and prepared the room for the VIP who arrived. And just in time before he came, we were able to provide him the room. So sometimes so many things unexpected. You have surprises that you can't really say no to, and you just have to keep calm and see what options, what we can create to make sure that we continue to deliver exceptional service.
So eventually, what is happening right now? A lot of professionals are not turning into hospitality. So looking at your journey and people around you, what is the kind of advice that you would want to give someone who's still trying to figure out their options after, let's say, by senior secondary? Because hospitality is not something that, as you know, it is something that has been declining, and not many people are inclined to work into hospitality. What is the kind of advice that you would like to give for them to be able to able to understand the possibilities in hospitality?
I think hospitality is a very rewarding career, and it's also very challenging. I don't know, sounded that it's going to be very easy, but it's going to be very challenging. It will require your commitment to come and deliver the service day in, day out. When your families and friends are celebrating Eid and Diwali and Christmas, you are working. So it is not easy, but then equally, you will have a lot of fun at work. you know to give an example, like, there are people who are paying more than €1,000 a night to come and watch a New Year's gala dinner, the fireworks and all of that, but you are serving with the guests and enjoying the free show of the fireworks and the drone show without paying anything. So you also build a lot of memories along that, right? Hospitality, as I said, is also evolving with a lot of use of technology and sustainability. So in the coming years, there's going to be a lot more benefits for colleagues to be opting to serve in hospitality. But I think it is also important to know that it will not be an easy journey for anybody who chooses to. But I can say that it will be very rewarding. You'll be able to travel, build rapport, learn a lot about different cultures from around the world. You will make friends when you're working as a colleagues, from different parts of the world. There's a lot of learning, growing, and you also, if you like to travel, you would also get to travel around the world. Get preferred hotel rates as a hotelier. So there's a lot of benefits as well. And your career can be really rewarding, but it is something that an individual has to be liking the job. As I said, it could be challenging, but it can be equally rewarding.
The intent of the discussion is kind of in the same lines. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I think it was an absolute honor to again, go through your journey. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of professionals would surely get inspired by what you've achieved and also try to follow the steps that you have done. So thank you for doing this for us. And I appreciate you taking your time and, speaking to us.
It was indeed a pleasure, to be able to do something like that. If somebody would have told me 20 years ago that you, Lokesh, you will sit on a podcast and explaining your journey as a hotelier in Dubai, I would not believe. When I came to Dubai in 2006, I was really astonished with the beautiful skyscrapers and the way city was developing and growing. And you see, Dubai has developed um, a lot in the last 20 years. A lot of bigger mega projects have come up, and I think along with Dubai, I also grew just within the four walls of the resort. But yes, a lot of learning, and it's really a pleasure to be here. And I hope I can make a difference in anybody's career. And if there's anybody who would like to reach out to me, feel free. It'll be again a pleasure to assist anybody. I would just say to your listeners, stay true to your craft, and stay committed. Life is not fair, and don't expect. Always expect the challenges, and always keep a very positive attitude towards finding a solution instead of cripping about the situations. I think this is something that really has helped me, to develop and grow, and always look for possibilities, and always be optimist. It was a pleasure.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.